looks like we have quite a few people already on, so it looks like pretty much everyone's here, so I think we'll get started. I'm Ann Mordecai, and I'll introduce all these other people in just a second. Some of them you can see their faces, and some of them they look like cats, but they really are people. So again, welcome to Understanding Modular Assessments for Grade 3, Math, ELA, and Science. Heather? Thank you. The webinar is being put on by Demonstrated Success, sponsored by the DOE. And Demonstrated Success, if you don't know who we are, we're a consulting company based in Portsmouth. We have, together we have decades. At one point we decided we were gonna say hundreds of years of experience, but it wasn't quite that much. We have some math specialists, ELA specialists. We do climate and culture initiatives and lots of PLC training and lots of data creation and teaching people how to create data and look at data. And then a lot of remote learning support since we started last March. We want to thank the DOE for sponsoring. They've sponsored quite a few webinars since March that we've been putting on, which is great. All remote learning and data and all that stuff. Thank you for hanging in there and working with your students, even though I know it's very frustrating. Everyone will be muted except for our 5 panelists here, who I will introduce in a minute. If you have questions, if you could find the question, the place where you actually ask questions, it's Q&A, and type your questions in there. I will interrupt Heather when they come up, or whoever. I'll interrupt Heather and ask whoever is appropriate to ask here, and they will answer them, or I'll wait until we get to that section, like I know she's going to cover it later. If you have something you want everyone to see, you can put it in the chat. Tomorrow, we'll send you an email that has the links to any documents that Heather talks about today, plus the PowerPoint and the certificate for PD. And here are some of the people who are here, not all, but there's Heather, who's going to be the presenter today. I'm second, and Annie Wallace is the Math and STEM Education Consultant from the DOE. We also have Evelyn Chester and Tom Glorfield from the Cambium company. So if you have any Cambium questions or any questions about the portal, they are the ones to ask. So they are unmuted and they will be able to talk.
All right, so this is where I take over. Hi, I'm Heather. I just wanted to start with a gentle reminder. I am actually going to turn off my my video. Oops. So that it's just a little distracting. So I will be stopping sharing my video, but I just wanted to say hello to everybody. So the gentle reminder is that the real goal of classroom assessment is to improve student performance and not merely audit it. So today we're going to be talking a lot about those New Hampshire SAS modular assessments and some data that we can get from them. But we want to make sure that in using these modular assessments that we're doing it and all with the understanding that we're going to improve student performance. So the goals for today are to answer the following questions. Why use the New Hampshire SAS modular assessments? What are the options for the New Hampshire SAS modular assessments, specifically for grade 3 today? And how do the modular assessments help me better understand my grade level standards? We're going to go through some misconceptions and some of the standards so that you can see what common misconceptions there are. And then how do I get to the New Hampshire SAS modular assessments and find them and be able to administrate them? There were no questions from sign up. Sorry, this is blank. So today for the agenda, the first thing we're going to talk about are the uses of the modular assessments. So just generally, we have some bullet points here. These assessments are short, periodic assessments. So there's 8 to 12 questions. All students are going to get the same questions. The students are based on the questions are based on the Common Core. The modular assessments are based on the standard domains, and you can match them up with your current units. You can administer them anytime throughout the year. and they are administered at current grade level or at the appropriate grade level for your student or students. So this is the benefits and how they can help teachers. They can help measure student achievement. They're automatically scored and the results are almost immediate and down to the question level. They can help you evaluate your program impact. They can help you understand each child's progress, gaps, and needs. This is really what we've been using them and at a lot of the sites that we've been working with, is really taking a look at what those gaps and needs are and what the students' progress is. They can help you determine resource needs. So as you're taking a peek at these and you do the assessments, you might need more resources for helping kids make sure that they are understanding specific standards and specific skills. They provide detailed information for instructional purposes, and they can help teachers gain a deeper understanding of standards and the depth of knowledge needed for students to be successful. I put that in a different color because this is really what we're going to be digging into. And one of the benefits of using those modular assessments is really looking at the standards and making sure that our interpretation is what is going to be required of students. So for student benefits, there are a lot of benefits for students, but these are the top ones. Basically, we really like these modular assessments to give students an idea of what the assessments are all about. When you're using these, they use them more frequently, so any sort of barriers of the system are taken out. So it allows them to practice right within the New Hampshire SAS system and right in the portal. And again, it takes away barriers of testing. I have an example here. There was a teacher that we've been working with, and over the years, she has been using the modulars. And these percentages here are on how her students scored on the New Hampshire SAS summative assessments when she started using the modular assessments throughout the year. So you can see it's not immediate, but over time, as she started getting better at using the modular assessments and understand what needed to be taught, she had students that were scoring far more proficient on the New Hampshire summative assessment. So how these assessments can be used. They can be used as an end of unit assessment. So if you have a specific unit of math that you're doing and you would like to use it as an end of unit assessment, you can find a modular that matches your unit. They can be used as a pre-assessment for a unit. So as you're starting a unit, you can see where kids are with specific skills. They can be set up as an assignment in the portal or as a formative assessment. So as you're going through your unit, you can give this as an assignment and just see how kids are doing thus far with the skills that you've presented. They can be used as a practice test before the New Hampshire summatives. So as you're going throughout the year, you can use these as mini sort of practice tests to get kids understanding what the system is like and how the testing is going to be for them rather than just giving it once a year. It's interesting, I was talking with Annie Wallace, who was here today the other day, and she had a really good analogy for the modular assessments. And we talk about all these kids in high school are doing these SAT prep courses. Their teachers are helping them prep for the SATs. And so they're using specific questions and understanding the material to take away that barrier of testing. And that's sort of what the modular assessments can be as well, is the more the students are in the system, the more practice they're getting. We are certainly not teaching to the test. We are not asking you to teach to the test, but having kids be able to be in the system, looking at the questions, having teachers looking at the questions and seeing sort of what the depth of knowledge needs to be is going to only be a win-win situation for the summatives at the end of the year. And A lot of sites that we've been working with are using the individual questions as a question of the day or example questions. So I'm going to show you how you can go in and you can take a peek at the assessment viewing application and maybe show your students either via an assignment or looking at the assessment viewing application to be able to use as individual questions. So here are the options for grade 3. So we have options for reading, writing, math, and science. Now, science is going to be technically grade 5, but I'm going to show you a little bit of information about some of the grade 3 science standards as well. So each one of these, the assessments, they're broken down into domains. So you can see for reading, there's editing, there's informational text, there's listening and reading literature. For writing, informative and opinion. And for math, just take a peek here for all of you folks that are the math gurus. The measurement, data, and geometry are together in one domain. And then numbers, operations, base 10 is another, numbers, operations, and fractions, and then operations and algebraic thinking. And then for science, you can see all the different science strands that we have here as well. So when it comes to math, the modular assessment topics are as follows. Here's the photo. This is directly from the assessment viewing application. So you can see measurement, data, and geometry has an A and a B. And then you can see that numbers and operations in base 10 has an A and a B. You can see numbers, operations, and fractions is A, B, and C. And then operations and algebraic thinking has a modular A, B, C, and D. So what we have done is we have created, there is going to be a handout that's a document. This is, some of these are screenshots from that document. So you'll have access to this document. It is a Google Doc that you'll be able to just print if you would like. But what we wanted to do is we broke down the modular assessments by the types of questions that they have. So just to kind of make sure you understand, for operations and algebraic thinking, there were 4 modulars. There was A, B, C, and D. And we thought it would be good to help you folks understand how many multiple choice questions there are and how many open questions there are. So if you are looking at the modulars for teaching specific skills and you don't want multiple choice the whole way, maybe you won't use modular D here. Maybe you use modular C or B. We just thought it was would help you with a little bit of understanding of how the modulars are set up. Another way that we broke this down was for each modular that's available, we broke it down by which standards are covered within those particular modulars and how many questions there are. So these 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s is the number of questions that are on that particular standard for the math modulars here. Now, keep in mind, when we go into the system and you see the assessment viewing application or you look at the modulars, they don't have the standards right there for you to see as you're viewing it. We've asked for that, and we understand that it would be helpful. After your students take a modular, it will list a specific domain, a cluster, and a standard that question is pertaining to. For math, it's a little bit more precise in that we are usually asking a question on a specific standard. There might be sort of a substandard in there or another standard that is also included, but for the most part, it's a single standard. But you'll see with the language arts, for those of us who are really into language arts isn't quite as precise. It's not just one standard. One standard's listed, but it is testing a lot of different standards. So it is a little bit different on the ELA side. So when we get to that, we can go over that. This particular screenshot right here, I am going to give kudos to Annie Wallace. She went through every single math modular there is for 3rd grade, and she wrote down every single question, the standard that it covers, the focus areas, that are for that particular question, the common misunderstandings or areas of challenge, and then any notes that you might want to have to say what are the types of questions. So she knew for this question, for measurement data and geometry, modular A, question 1, here's the standard, focus area, misconception, and it uses a drawing tool, and they need to know about classifying quadrilaterals. She has this for every single one of the math modulars. So it is a supplemental document that will be in the folder that we will share with you tomorrow. And it's amazing, amazing. So thank you, Annie, for this. Are there any questions or anything? And I'm going to move on to ELA.
No questions yet, but please ask when you have them.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So the ELA modular assessment topics, you can see that we have editing A and B, informational A, B, listening. We have here is there's just a 1 for listening, one of them. For literature, there's A and B. Informative, there's A and B. For that, this is writing, and then opinion writing, there's an A and B. So we broke down again for the modular assessments for ELA. For each modular, how many specific multiple choice questions there were and how many open questions there were, just so that you can kind of understand how those questions are broken down. In addition, we broke down each one of the modular assessments and which standards are covered for that particular assessment. Again, ELA is a little bit different. Even though it's listing one particular standard, we know that with ELA, we're rarely ever just teaching or assessing one specific standard, but there is a focus standard for each question. So it's broken down here. So for the science modular topics, we have all of these here. Now, again, these are technically listed under grade 5 in the assessment viewing application, and for the modulars, you can give them at grade 3. They include grade 3 topics, and they're really useful for looking at advanced problem solving strategies. And on the next page, I'll show you a little bit of that. But if you look here, each one of these is listed. Every single one of these that I've highlighted here is actually, for the next generation science standard, is a grade 3 standard. So I know that schools sometimes take a look at those standards, and they're usually in a range, grade 3 through 5. And sometimes you teach things in grade 3 or grade 4, so it varies for the school. But you can take a look at these topics and see that there are some topics that are grade 3 topics that you could use the modular assessments for. So these are the 4 that are for grade 3. They, again, are mapped to the next generation science standards. They're hard. So just so you know, students typically do not score well on the New Hampshire SAS science assessments. They are really, they dive deep into crucial problem solving skills, but the kids don't have a lot of understanding or a lot of work with the science modulars or doing science in general in a computerized application. So don't forget about these, because they're really, really useful, not just for teaching science, but also for teaching nonfiction text. And again, those problem solving skills that kids are really in need of right now. Okay. So going through grade level examples, this is where we're sort of getting into the nitty gritty of specific standards. I will say it is mostly getting into the math standards because they're a little bit more pinpointed in the questions, but we will be talking about the ELA questions and some writing questions as well. So what we did for each domain, we came up with a sample question. Now, these have been changed a little bit from the assessment viewing application and the modular questions. These are either released items or we've changed the numbers so that they're not exactly what is in the assessment viewing application, but you'll get the idea of what we're trying to show you here. There's questions that are very similar to this in the system, and the same misunderstandings are happening. So if we're looking at operations and algebraic thinking, we're looking at 3OA8D, and we're looking at two-step word problems using the 4 operations. You all can read the standard there. One of the biggest misconceptions or challenges is to be able to symbolically represent something in a given context. And also the fact that this is a multi-step problem is sometimes it's overlooked when we're teaching and making sure that we are doing multi-step problems. I know that we're much better at it than we were before. I've been in the classroom and I know that folks are really working on that. But sometimes it's also the vocabulary between using the word equation and expression. So we thought that this would be a good example for you to see. This is a 3rd grade question and students are being asked to answer it. We also liked it because it had the keypad down there. It's not a calculator. I did call it a calculator one time, but it is not a calculator. It's just the pad, so that kids need to know how to use that particular tool within the system to be able to really do well on this question. So moving on to numbers and operations base 10, numbers in base 10. So using place value and understanding to round numbers to the nearest 10 or 100. We've got this down, but what is happening here in this, it's a little bit more than just rounding to the nearest 10. So we do that, and we do that well. We know if it's a 5 or above, we round up. If it's 4 or below, we round down. But this is asking them to put in a range, the least amount, or the smallest number that this number could be that we've rounded, and the largest number that it could be. So we don't necessarily teach rounding in this way. We think, well, kids would be able to understand it with the way we're teaching it, but it is just a little bit different way to look at rounding. So we wanted to include this one. So for numbers and operations, here we are looking at NBT 2, and it's fluently add and subtract within 1,000. We all have looked at this one 100 times. We know this, we've got this. And so what we wanted to make sure that you are understanding is making sure that we're writing the numbers horizontally, not just vertically, and that we're teaching them how to solve it horizontally and vertically. So I know as a 2nd grade teacher, I would say, what's the first thing you need to do here? Okay, you're going to write it up and down, right? We're going to take our horizontal and we're going to write it vertically. But this particular question is asking them to keep it horizontal and to figure out where the problem is with this particular question. So they need to highlight the mistake and then they need to solve the problem themselves. So it is a little bit different than just taking a peek and doing a straight 820 take away 535. The next one is the NF2 standard here, and it's understand a fraction as a number on a number line and represent a fraction on a number line diagram. So we just need to make sure that students know how to use a number line in the system, and that making sure that they understand the different increments of the number line and not just making it themselves, or they would be able to take any number line and figure out how to plot things on it or move things back and forth. One of the things that we thought would be good for this in making sure that kids are understanding this is choral counting, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, and knowing that 4/4 is the same as a whole. So there's just some general sort of advice for teaching, and just knowing where the pitfall might be is with this number line and being able to maneuver it in the system. The next one is measurement and data, 7D, and that's recognizing area as an additive. So we've got here, we're asking kids to find the area, and they have to basically decompose a figure and be able to, or a shape, and be able to figure out the area. What we've noticed a lot with this question as well, or similar questions, is that they look at this and they want to do perimeter because they see that there's numbers sort of all the way around. So making sure that that kids are really solid with the understanding the difference between area and perimeter and being able to decompose. All right, this one here is geometry 1A. And so we do a lot with shapes. This particular question, though, we saw one of the biggest misconceptions is that not knowing that a square is also a rectangle. And we also liked this example question because figure A is not actually closed. So it's not any sort of shape. Well, it's not a square, which is what, or a rectangle, which is what kids might think it is. So we really liked that that was open. And this is also another pitfall that we've seen is choose all that apply. It's multiple choice. You would think it would be easy, but they have to choose more than one or potentially more than one answer. Okay, so moving on to the ELA modular questions. So for reading literature, what we really wanted to point out with the reading modulars is that if you're using these, you will see this right here. We don't have the whole screenshot, but there is much more to this passage than you can see here. So making sure that kids know that they need to scroll down. They can also use these arrows to go and make the actual passage bigger so that they might be able to read it a little bit more easily. They can highlight, they can block out text that they might think might not be needed. So there's a lot of little things in the system that can really help students be able to answer these questions. Also, having kids understand this particular passage has 8 questions, and they click on each one of the questions and have to answer each one of the questions. There's a lot of different types of questions in here. So getting into these reading modulars is really crucial for you to understand and make sure that you're teaching those skills in a way that are also presented in the system, whether it be the vocabulary that you're using or the types of questions that you are asking, and getting into that level of detail that will be needed when they do the summative assessments as well. So for reading informational text, it's similar. Usually there are at least 2 passages that kids have to read and that students have to do, and then they're answering all of the questions that go along with this. And we wanted to show this type of question as well, because they need to be able to get everything correct here to get full credit for this particular question. So there's a lot of information about key details. There are quite a few questions about characters in the story, or looking at 2 passages and comparing the 2 passages. So getting into those modulars will also help you for reading informational text. They're similar, but obviously one is going to be nonfiction and the other one is fiction. We are finding that a lot of us are concentrating and have been concentrating for the past few years on informational text. It has been something that is sort of a buzzword in education for the last few years, is we need more informational text. Kids are not understanding informational text. And I will say, from what we've seen on the summatives and even the interims as well at the beginning of this year, kids are holding their own on the informational text. And then the reading literature up here is becoming a little bit of a challenge. So don't just concentrate on informational, make sure you're looking at both of them. The editing, here's an example question for editing. Basically, there's highlights in here, and they need to, for each highlight, they need to click the word or phrase that's correct. So they'll be clicking on this, and it will give them a little bit of it'll give them an example of what they can put in for a correct answer. For speaking and listening, they will be listening to conversations and answering questions about that particular conversation.
Can I interrupt for a second, Heather?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say about the reading assessment, or the reading, especially the literature and the informational text. In class, we usually give kids, we tell them, pick up something you're interested in, find a book you want to read, find something you like. And then they have to come here and read something that they totally don't want to read, or they're totally not interested in. So giving them these tests, or at least showing them the passages and having them read the passages, is good practice for the test and good practice for life, because, as an adult, I have to read things that I'm not that interested in once in a while for whatever reason. So it's a good thing to practice every now and then. That's all.
Great, thank you. All right. Moving on to the writing. The writing modulars are, I recommend obviously all the modulars. I think that they're really great ways to get kids understanding the standards, but the writing is something that we've seen that kids are not necessarily scoring as high as we feel like maybe their abilities are. So take a look at these modulars, because the writing modulars will be really insightful for you to be able to understand the types of writing that they are looking for. There are some writing rubrics that we have that I'll be showing you in just a little bit. They're within the portal, and they're I feel like they're invaluable for teaching writing. We all, as classroom teachers, we have these writing rubrics that I feel like we've been working on for years, and then they change a little bit, and we've been working on them again. But there are writing rubrics that go right along with this that will help you understand the type of writing that they are looking for these passages. It is, I know that I've heard from some folks that said we have very good writers that don't score well on this assessment. Well, this would be the way to be able to do it, is for you, if nothing else, for teachers to go in and to be able to see the types of prompts and the types of questions and what they're looking for is going to be invaluable for you. So this is the informative. Opinion is the same thing. You can look at what the question is, write an essay in which you give your opinion about what time school should start for elementary students, give reasons for your opinion that are based on ideas and information from the school hours passage. So it's going to be here. And this passage is not short. So take a look at them, and then I'll show you an example of the writing rubrics and where to find them. And it should help you understand and make sure that we're covering everything we need to cover for writing for students. This is a science modular question example. Anne and I were laughing a little bit about these science modular questions, because it's been a while since we've been in school, but they are pretty tricky. Right here, this is basically what the students, this is a released item that we got from the testing application, but this is what the students read, and they're going to answer multiple questions. So you would think this is pretty simple to be able to read and take a look at, but then they have to answer these questions that are not super easy. So they'll have to basically take a look and say, all right, all of these things, which ones, how do I figure out which, column am I checking off? They have to really think about what they've read or what they've seen, and make sort of educated understandings about what they've seen in this particular picture and what they've read. For part B, they have to select 3 conditions that the stilts must meet. It's not quite as easy as you would think. So they're not just, oh, here's A, B, C. It's choose 3 problems that could be caused. And then every single one of them seems to have this type of fill in the blank here, where they're using a drop down and filling in the correct verbiage to be able to go in. So the science modulars, again, you don't have to be teaching science to be able to give them. They have some great information in there and some nonfiction text. So looking at the assessment viewing application, this is where you're going to find the actual modular questions. I'm going to go through the steps of logging into the assessment viewing application, and then we're going to go live for a few minutes so that I can show you some of the things that might be helpful for you. So step 1, you're going to go to the New Hampshire Statewide Assessment System. It's newhampshire.portal.cambiumask.com. It used to be New Hampshire Portal AirAsk.org. It is now the Cambium one. It's the same place you went to administer the interim assessments. You are going to, once you click on in there and go to the Cambium site, you'll go to test administration.
I have a question, Heather, if you can back up one.
Yep.
I actually have a few questions. I've been waiting till you get to this section, this part of the test. Go forward one, yeah. Somebody is asking, how do you find released items?
Okay, this is good. This little area here, can you see my pointer that I'm going around? This practice and training test, this is where you're going to go in and take a peek at the released items. There's released items for every grade level. There's one for math and one for ELA and for science as well. Anything else with that?
No, I do. Well, there's one fake practice assessment, not one question for each of those subjects, right?
Right. There's one assessment for math and one assessment for reading.
Okay. The other questions, I'm going to wait until you go live.
Okay. All right. And I can try to show you live that practice and training test too, if we have some time. So you're choosing test administration. And then once you choose test administration, your 9-box page comes up and you are going to choose assessment viewing application. And then you're going to log in, same way you logged in for the interim assessments. If you haven't logged in a while, it will send a code to your email. Every once in a while, the code goes to your spam. So check your spam if it doesn't show right up in your inbox. It will ask you which grade level you want for available tests. So you're going to select the grade. And then it will open up that particular grade level and show you all of the modular assessments. If you are somebody who saw them in the past and you're noticing it looks a little bit different, it does look a little different. All of the modular assessments are now blue. They used to be color-coded and sort of broken apart by subject. And we've talked about that and asked for that back because it is a little tricky to find the different assessments in here. But right now you're going to see all like this where it's going to be all blue. So you would choose a specific modular that you wanted and it will open up that particular modular. So here's where I'm going to go live. Do you have a question before then? I see something.
There's one of the, what is the assessment viewing application? You're doing that right now. What's the URL you've done? How can I find the standards that are matched to questions? So that's still a little ways away, I think, right?
Well, the standards matching the questions, we did that. That's what Annie did. So she's got the Excel spreadsheet, but you will not see the standards as I go live. You'll see, and I'll kind of scroll through one of the modulars. It will not show you the standard that's attached to it. As you're looking at the question, it doesn't give you that information. The only way you will see the information inside the portal is after kids have taken the modular assessment. You can see with the data, it is matched up to the standards, but it will not show you that beforehand.
Okay. I have another one. I'm not a classroom teacher. Can we get a login?
That would be something for your administrator to be able to figure out how to get you in the system, but I would think so. It's
Yeah.
you know about that too, Anne, right? Is that they have to ask their tide?
Well, you can first try underneath the login is logging on for the first time this year or something like that. Click on that and see if it will send you an email. If it does, send you a link. If it does, good. If it doesn't, then you will have to go to your administrator.
Okay. So I'm live right here. So if I click on the assessment viewing application, it says right here, request a new one for this school year.
Yep. And somebody wants to know the difference between using a modular and using the practice tests.
Well, there's a couple of different differences. The modulars the practice tests are not for specific domains. The practice test for math is going to cover all different questions and all different standards for math. It's going to go across domains, and I believe they were about 24 questions, 25 questions. And it is similar to maybe what a summative might be. So you would be able to use that and say, these are the types of questions. When we look at the modulars are a little bit more focused on a specific set of standards or a specific domain, so that if you are going through a specific unit of, let's say, math, you would be able to use it maybe as an end of unit assessment or something like that, where the practice test is something you would just be able to show your students. The modulars are also scored, so you can see how students are doing on specific skills. And the modulars are about 10 or 12 questions. Some of them are 8. I think there's a couple that might be 14, but they're shorter than the released items.
Yeah, one more thing. I think the practice test is probably, and actually Tom or Evelyn, you could probably answer this, but probably set up to show you the different types of responses, not necessarily the different types of questions where there might be issues with, the way things are not working on the standards, more working on.
This is Tom, and yeah, that's pretty much correct. Yeah, the practice and training tests are kind of designed to show students and parents and folks that don't need to have access to any of the systems, kind of how the systems work, meaning, how the different tools that the student can interact with during the test, how the student can become familiar with how that test system works. It's not necessarily the place to look at content, although there is content in there that is aligned to the standards and aligned to New Hampshire's blueprint. It's more just kind of how to have a kid or a parent like kick the tires of the system. The content, the more prevalent content would be contained in the modulars or through AVA, through the viewing system to show students. But again, that's all behind a password protected area of the portal. So that's kind of the main difference between the two.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. All set, Anne?
All set. No more questions right now.
Okay. So I'm going to log in really quickly. I'm looking at the time too, so I just want to be cognizant of making sure that we stay on time here. So I'm going to go into grade 3. And again, here are all the modulars that there are for 3rd grade. There's Braille modulars underneath as well. So this is where you're going to access any of the information that you would like to see within the modular assessments. I wanted to just show you quickly, if we get into one of the modulars, for you to be able to see, if I go into Literature A, to see some of the things that you are going to encounter or students would encounter. So this is, every teacher is going to recognize this. I heard the sound, and then all I have to do is continue. That won't show up for the math ones, but so this is what I'm talking about here, is being able to take a peek. This is the reading that the students have to do for a specific question. They can close this, they can open, they can, if they just want to look at the questions now and see them a little bit bigger, or just and not be sort of seeing the passage. I can't imagine why they wouldn't want to see the passage, but some kids might be distracted by that. They can, over here is the masking. So if I do this, I'm able to mask and cross out. If you are just clicking and dragging, you click and drag, and then you right click and you can highlight. So these are the things that are going to be, you're going to want to take a peek at inside the system to be able to make sure that students are able to use the tools that they can to be able to answer questions as well. I can reset my highlighting. And then here is question 1. There's a part A and part B. You can take a look at sort of what the questions are and how hard they may be. There's 11 different questions for this particular passage. So if you were to go through, you can see the types of questions that are being asked, so that you can make sure that you are also mirroring those types of questions with passages or readings that kids are doing in your classroom. In addition, I just want to make sure you know, like, this is where we're saying we don't necessarily see the exact standards that are being covered here. And I am just looking at this. Even if I choose specific answers and I move on, I am not necessarily taking the test. I'm just showing. So this particular area is really for teachers to be able to see the different types of questions. And if you wanted to show your students a specific questions or question, or just talk about this or have a discussion with your class, this is where you would do that. So this assessment viewing application is really the, okay, sort of here's the sort of textbook, here's all the information in here, and it allows you to kind of figure out, what do you want to be giving to your students? Do you want to give this particular modular? Maybe you want to use modular B instead because you like that particular passage better. Maybe you're going to use both. It's up to you, but this is really where you're viewing the general information about what is contained in the modulars. In a different part of the portal is where you will, if you decide you want to give the modulars to your students, you will be then assigning the modulars or creating a test session for the modulars or benchmark assessments for your students. But again, this is where you're viewing it and kind of taking a peek at what the students are being, or the expectations for the students are. To get back, if you want to take a look at a different modular, the best way I have found to do this is, you can't really use the back button. You can, but it's going to ask you to sort of reset. It's not going to take you back to that drop-down menu for grade 3. So I close this out and I say leave, and then I go right back into the assessment viewing application again, and I choose grade 3. It's a little bit of a workaround because we can't hit the back button and have it really load everything in the way and make it look like this again. But again, you can go through here, and then if you were looking at a math modular, you will see here, if I look at numbers and operations fraction A, again, you can see the types of questions that are being asked in this. It doesn't give you the standard, but again, if your students take this, the standards are attached to it, and we also have Annie's Excel spreadsheet that will help us. We've also found in working with our sites that it is a really good sort of application and figuring out the standards and knowing the standards and understanding them to go through this as teachers and match it up with standards ourselves, and really taking a look at how we're interpreting the standards and making sure we know them. It's definitely a lesson in making sure and testing your knowledge of your grade level standards. So again, I'll show you what happens when you hit, this is the confirm resubmission, and there's kind of a lot of steps, and then we still have to pick the grade. So it's probably just easiest to close that out if you get into one of the modulars. So you won't see the science here. If you go to grade 5, this has the grade 3 has the math, the reading, and the writing. This is where you're going to see the science is in grade 5. They're right up at the top, and then you can see this is a 3rd grade standard here, so you could go in and you could take a peek at this one. I think I'll move on from that for right now and go back to my PowerPoint. All right, so administering these the modulars and then the reporting. So for administering, I did what we did was I created some slides just to say how the different ways you could administer them. So you could administer it, you could use it as a question of the day. So you can present your screen right from the assessment viewing application, right where we were, and be able to show students and have a discussion on how they might solve a specific problem, or this is how, if you're doing ELA, let's read this passage and answer the questions and do it all together. You can do that right through the assessment viewing application. Obviously, you're not going to get any reporting off of that. You're not going to necessarily know where students are, but we really see value in making sure that you are giving and having students have access to what the questions look like. So even if you're not ready to commit to giving a modular assessment, just having them look at it and do questions of the day is still extremely valuable. Also, you can give the modular assessment as an assignment to students in the portal. So you can go into the portal, you can go into the test administration, and you can assign this as, it's called an assignment, and you choose a modular. And that way students can pull it up and you can work through the questions together. Again, if you're working through the questions together, you aren't necessarily going to get really great data because you're working with it all together, but you're still giving students access to the system, still beneficial. You can do the modular assessment if you are creating it as an assignment in the portal. It's done completely in the portal. You do not have to proctor assignments. So if you're giving it as an assignment and having students do it on their own rather than going through each question together, that's great. You don't have to proctor it, you send it out and students do it on their own time. Students can either work independently or you can work as a group. And assignments can be used for a lot of different ways. They can be used for pre-assessment. They can be used for progress monitoring. You can use them as an end of unit assessment, or again, like I was saying earlier, questions of the day. So the assignment portion of the portal just makes it easier for you not to have to be able to proctor anything or start a session and get kids into a session. You'll get a code and they're able to work on their own, and you can give them that information, they work on it, and then you have your results right there. If you would like to proctor a modular assessment, again, this is done in the portal. You can create either an active session with a specific modular or an upcoming session. So it's just the same way as we administered the interim assessments. Some people administered them as an active session. Some people said it was an upcoming session, and some people said that they were assignments. You had that option this fall, and that's the same way that you will do the modular assessments. Creating the session, again, that's what we were just saying, the same as the interims. And proctoring means you need to be in the session and you need to admit students into the session. You need to start the session, join it, and get kids in. And we have a webinar coming up in March for how to administer. So if you weren't sure how to do that, even if you went back to one of our webinars from the fall for how to administer the interims, it's the exact same steps. It's just you're going to be administering a modular assessment. So, and if you need help, you can always email us. I'm not going to get too far into that because we're running low on time here, and that wasn't really what this particular webinar was. So, modular assessments as sessions or assignments. So regardless of whether you're going to create it as an assignment or have it as an upcoming or active session, you're going to go into the portal. You're going to choose test administration. And then you're going to choose test administration again. And then you're going to log in. And then you'll come up to this screen here and you're able to choose which type of session that you want. Okay, I just wanted to show you a little bit of the reports so that you can see if you give these to students and the students do these on their own, this is the type of reports that types of things that you will be able to see. So once your students finish a modular assessment, the results are available. They're right in the portal. The reports have detail down to the question and standard level. For those of you who are looking at the interim data and really trying to figure out which standards to cover, it was a little bit harder to figure that out because kids got different questions. The modulars, everybody gets the exact same question. So it is really easy to figure out which types of questions students are still having trouble with. And the data can be used to assess understanding, create groups for teaching, and digging deeper into students' mastery of standards. So to get into the reporting after the students have taken a modular, you go right into reporting. Again, it's right on that same Cambium site. And then here is an example. Math and ELA are very similar. So they all look like this. You'll be able to see here. It shows you once they take the modular, it will tell you the 5 items that the students perform best on and the 5 items that they perform the worst on. So it's really helpful to see what were the questions that really tripped kids up. On the left-hand side, I have cut off the student names. You would see your student names there as well. Here, you can take a peek at just every single question. So you can see how they did on any specific question, and then you can drill into the question. If you click right on that number, it will give you the question and corresponding domain, cluster, and standard, and you can also see the correct answer. If you click on the where the student is, like the student scored a 0, you will see what their particular answer was. So you can look at all the questions to see how individual students scored and again, what their answers are. And then you can also export this particular report into Excel so that you can do whatever you would like to do in Excel for it. So for those of us who really love Excel, again, I've taken the student names off of here. You can manipulate the information or just show specific information for your teachers to be able to see or for you to be able to use for whatever you need, whether it be RTI or just reteaching, what have you. All right, I just wanted to quickly go through some other resources that people I don't think are aware of in the portal. So on this 9-box page, there is this test administration resources area. Within here, if you choose general information and you choose for teachers, a lot of information is going to come up. The first thing on the top is going to be performance level descriptors. So these are really, I can't believe that I didn't know about these before. They are, here's an example. So here's the standard, and then this is how kids would be below proficient, approaching proficient, or highly proficient. They have these for math and they have them for ELA. They also have them for science as well. So take a look at those PLDs. In addition, in that same area, there's writing rubrics. These are what I was talking about that we have found really useful for teachers to make sure that they're understanding how the writing is being scored. This is an example of the summative. We've been sending people in direction of the summative because that's sort of the end game, so they can see students who score a 4, a 3, and then there's a 2 and a 1 underneath this. So this is one of the examples of the opinion writing rubric for grades 3 through 5. There's also a vocabulary list for every single grade level. So you open up the vocabulary list and it's got all the grade levels there. This is specifically the vocabulary list for grade 3. All of this information is also in our grade 3 document that you will be able to have. That's that Google Doc. So you'll have that. And then this is also something that we thought was super helpful for people who are looking in the assessment viewing application or just looking at reporting in general in the portal. This is the Common Core standards. So this is an example of math. Up here, each one of these, operations and algebraic thinking, you heard me use them and use the terminology that's the domain that we're talking about. So the modulars are broken out by domain. Sometimes more than one domain is together. So we have measurement, data, and geometry are together. So there's 2 domains. Underneath that, this in the bold here is the cluster of skills. And then down here, the 1 and 2 is the standards that are covered underneath that. I just wanted to make sure that you understood that, because as you're looking at the reporting or even looking at results of your modular assessments, you'll see if you click on one of those numbers, and I said it would bring up the domain, the cluster, and the standards. This is what I was referring to here. The same thing for ELA. We have here key ideas and details. This is your cluster. Here, the domain is reading standards for literature. And then underneath this cluster of key ideas and details, here are your standards. So this domain has key ideas and details, craft and structure, and so on. So as you're looking at the Common Core standards, none of this is in there for you to see, but this is sort of our little cheat sheet so that people can make sure they understand that. All right, any other questions, Anne?
Yep, I have somebody asked, I think it's more clarification of the practice tests and the difference between them all, but the practice tests are not student specific, so there are no records of their scores, etc. I think that's is that true?
Yes, that is true. There's no score. It will not be in the reporting portal for the practice.
So there is a difference between the practice tests, the assessment viewing application, and the modulars. So that the practice test is anybody on the internet can get on and look at those practice tests. The assessment viewing application is you have to have a password to get into, and it's really so that you can view the assessments. And you can enter answers, but it's not going to do anything with those answers. So it's to view the assessments. And then the modulars are the part, is when the kids are actually taking them and the answers are being collected. I hope that explains the difference.
Yeah, and on the screen right now, I got into the practice and training test so you can see what it is. These are the tests that are available. So for grade 3, there's an ELA practice test. There's a math practice test, and then, well, the science one is here, but that's got all the questions also from grade 5. All you do is you click right on this and it will bring you in and you'll choose which practice tests that you want to do. If I click on this, it's going to bring me straight to the modulars. I think there's a little glitch with the system. This is not what you will see if you're not logged in. So I have to actually log out of the system, and
It just looks a little different.
yeah, so if I do that and I go into the take practice,
Yeah, you're still on.
not letting me do it. I have to like reset my browser. I'm not really sure what that is, but if you have not logged into the system, you will be able to see the
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. Any other questions?
I don't see any more. Anybody have any questions? You can ask now, or we can stay on a couple minutes after and answer any questions if you want to actually raise your hand and ask them. You can do that.
All right. So webinars coming up this month. We have right on our Demonstrated Success website. If you look at workshops and webinars and you choose the remote instruction and data coaching, these are the webinars we have coming up in the next few weeks. So we're doing grade 3 right now. Next week, we'll be doing grade 4. Then we have grade 5. And then for grades 6 through 8, we're breaking it out by content area. So we're doing grades 6 through 8 math, 6 through 8 ELA, and 6 through 8 science. We also have an SAT to inform instruction. Probably not this particular crowd that's going to be wanting to do that one, but we also have information from our past data coaching webinars. So if you click on any of these links, it will bring you right to our YouTube page. If you just go on YouTube and you type in Demonstrated Success, you will see all of our past webinars there. You can view any of those at any time. This will also be on our YouTube site. So if you have colleagues that you would like to be able to see this, or if you're an administrator and you have staff members you would like to be able to watch this, it will be available. Also, Anne and I are working on a New Hampshire SAS modular PD program. It's been going on all year. It will go on to the end of the year. It is sponsored by the DOE, so it is free. You will have trainers like myself, and it will basically, we talk with schools and administrators and figure out how can we help you with these modulars and get you going. Maybe talk to your different teachers, or help teachers maybe who have seen this and say, I really want to do this, but I need some help. How are we going to match these up with our units? We come in and we help you with that. So if you have any thoughts or want to be part of that program, definitely contact us. Our information will be on the next slide. And then we're also on social media. You can follow us or like us on any of these applications or apps, I guess. We have a lot of really useful information and tips for teachers, and some upcoming information about some PD we have. And sometimes there's some really interesting articles, so take a peek at those. And here we are. Oh, I have Annie's information in here. If you would like Annie's information, I can get it to you. I wanted to ask her first before I put it in here. So we can definitely, we'll add it to the PowerPoint if that's okay. And then we will, once you get your email tomorrow, you can see the information and you can contact her at any time. If you are looking to get in touch with Cambium and you have questions specifically about the portal, there are, to get in touch with them, anytime you see this contact us underneath here, this is how you contact Cambium. So if you have any questions about that, you can certainly contact myself or Anne if you have any questions specifically about administering the modulars. But if you have general questions about the portal, Cambium, they're so good. Their help desk is amazing. So make sure that you tap into that if you need that. And there might be a couple more questions, Anne.
I don't see any more questions. No.
Okay. All right. So thank you everybody for coming today. We know that your time is valuable. Again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me or Anne, and we'll see what we can do. Thank you for everybody for coming to from Cambium, for Tom and Evelyn, and for Annie Wallace, and for the information that's been provided by them too.
Thank you, everybody. And we'll stay on for a minute. And if you want to raise your hand, that would be great. If you have a question that you want to talk, you want to ask in real voice, we'll stay for a minute or two.
Sounds good.
And I don't know, Annie and Tom and Evelyn, do you have anything to add that we should have said?
No, I don't. I've got some information on when the summative window opens. We can a couple of things we might want to talk about, but we can certainly do that offline or wait till everybody peels off. But yeah, short of that, no, I don't have anything to add. Nice job.
Thank you. It was good. It was great, Heather. So we'll wait and talk to you when we're done. When people
Okay.
are. Doesn't look like there are any hands coming up. So thank you for joining us. And please go to the Demonstrate Success site or the DOE site to see when other webinars are coming up.